Hi, everyone. Welcome back to WorkTech. It's me, George LaRocque, and I'm particularly excited today for our guest, Amy Wilson from SAP SuccessFactors. Before I ask Amy to introduce herself, if you've seen me or been listening to me in any of the webinars or speaking lately, I've been talking about how important the major platforms in our industry are, especially at this time with rapid innovation around generative AI and automation. So I'm thrilled to have Amy here to talk to us about SAP and what's happening there. Amy, welcome.
Thanks so much, George. So happy to be here.
Well, I'm not sure if I told everyone your title, but as the SVP of Product and Design, I was wondering if we could start with you. For anybody who doesn't know you, telling them who you are, but also I love the design part of your title. And so I'd love to know more about what all that means for your role and your purview at SAP.
Oh, absolutely. Well, so I would say that within the R&D area for SAP SuccessFactors, I and my team are responsible for figuring out what to build and why, and then conceiving every portion of it. And we start the research at from the very beginning, both behavioral science research, as well as design research, ethnographic research, et cetera, to identify what it is that we should be building and why. And so there's a big human factor element into all of that work that we do.
I love that. WorkTech, the name of this business, was changed to that 4 years ago because we could see the change in HR tech and the categories sort of collapsing. A big part of that had to do with experience, and it has to do with being, human forward, user forward, front and back office. So candidates, employees, but let's not forget about the people in the back office in HR. And we've had conversations about that once or twice. But before I go there, so I love having that experience lens on this whole topic, along with the platform lens. But as I mentioned, I've seen a lot of stuff out there, and there have been a lot of conversations about SAP and generative AI and automation and innovation. And I was wondering if maybe we could start with just how SAP SuccessFactors is thinking about that, and how it's coming to play in the platform.
Absolutely. Well, we are all in when it comes to AI, George, and
Okay.
we're really looking at AI in 4 categories. So, of course, there's generative AI, as we've all been hot on for the last
Right.
few months. There's conversational AI. So that's where we get the digital assistant chatbot. There's deep learning AI, and that's where we get into our talent intelligence and skills ontology areas. And then the last one we like to call boring but important AI, or the more the more appropriate term is intelligent process automation, right? So really applying AI to the really boring things that we need to get done.
Yeah.
So specifically with regards to generative AI, I think we have tried to catch the wave in a rapid fashion, just like how we saw ChatGPT come out and change things so fast. What we did was, with our Sapphire conference, which was in May, we introduced a couple of concepts in terms of applying generative AI to the recruiting space. We showed those on stage. And then now, just a few months later, coming up on our Success Connect conference, which is in October, we will actually be launching these into production live. And so just, being able to narrow that kind of innovation time span has been really important.
Yeah, it's impressive. And I think the there's so much hype in the market, specifically around generative AI, that we forget that we've had AI in our space for a long time. And I think lately I've been saying, we purposely haven't talked about it because it was a very complicated topic, and you might talk about it when you're having a deep product conversation, but it wasn't something that with users or HR leaders, you weren't getting into the intricacies. But now generative AI has brought the possibilities like right front and center. So it's not just about generative, it's about all those other three types. So that's really important for you to point out.
Yeah, and it's so intertwined, to your point from earlier, it's so intertwined with the user experience too, right? Whereas maybe a lot of the AI that we've thought about in the past, it was going on behind the scenes, and it was, solving kind of big existential problems. But now with generative AI and some other things that we're doing as well in terms of recommendations and so on, it's much more about enabling the end user to be faster, smarter, more productive, that sort of thing. So it's much easier to consume and understand.
Yeah. 100%. And another aspect to this, given the size of your customer base, the global reach, the amount of data, even for one of your larger customers, one enterprise grade customer, the sort of data set that you have access to that this AI feeds on, and also having the enterprise grade security and privacy. I think that's so critical to me. And there's so many apps, like every app that I use on my desk, I feel like I can go in and use chat GPT or whatever they're using on the back end to help me do things. But I'm a little hesitant because I don't know where this is going. I could upload one of my reports, but I'm not really sure what's happening to that once it's up there. And that's a very simple example. But if I'm in HR and I'm using this for comp or something, or I'm using it for something sensitive, I need to be concerned. And is that, while all these things are flying at buyers right now, it feels like overnight. In November, ChatGPT launched, and it was like before the end of November, there were apps flying, announcements coming. And I think, you're taking the time to look at those issues. I just knowing SAP, is that?
Yeah, absolutely. As you can imagine, SAP has a very strong data privacy machinery behind it. So that's key. And so to be quite honest, the first couple of use cases that we're going to market with are pretty safe, right? While we sort out how we can actually do things that are more sensitive, and whether we can do things that are more sensitive. So the first couple of use cases that we're introducing with recruiting are, first of all, help with creating a job description. And then the second is helping to create job interview questions and this is, I love this particular use case, George, because it brings together WorkTech and generative AI and so on. And so basically the scenario is that you are just about to have an interview. Microsoft Teams, our SuccessFactors chatbot in Microsoft Teams, alerts you to the fact that it's upcoming. It gives you the ability to check out the person's resume. It also gives you the ability to generate some interview questions and through generative AI. And then it also gives you access to the assessment right there within Microsoft Teams, so that you can have that right up there. And then once you complete that, bring that back to SuccessFactors. Now, the generative AI component of that experience that we've built is limited, to be honest. So it's looking at the job description, looking at all of the job requirements and so on, and generating the questions from there. Now, what we would love to do is overlay that with the candidate, the specific candidate, their resume, information about them. But that's where we start to get into some tricky territory with regards to PII and so on. And so this is where we're putting a very strong ethical and privacy lens on everything. And so we plan to get there, but we want to make sure that we're doing it in a way that everyone is comfortable, whether it's, you know, SAP, it's our customers, it's the candidate, it's the manager, et cetera. Everyone is comfortable with what's happening. And so as a part of all of that, even with these simple use cases that aren't particularly sensitive, we are addressing one of the things that you brought up, which is, you know, how do I know? How do I know what I'm doing is okay? You know, bringing into the user experience some of that consent and acknowledgement without overloading the end user, but really having that design pattern, that design element to make sure that everyone is on board and feels comfortable and knows what's happening with data behind the scenes.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And, you know, to pause, you know, that experience through Microsoft Teams, you're right in the flow of work. You're meeting the user where they are. They're not leaving to log in to SAP. And the whole interaction is happening there. That's key. So you're hitting on, so we have these 6 core tenets of WorkTech, and one of them is being in the flow of work, and it's and in a meaningful way, right? Where, like, the fact that the experience and the transactions, technical term, are happening in Teams, that's exactly what we mean by that. The other thing is participating one of the other 3 of 6, I should say, is the ecosystem, participating in it wholeheartedly. And you've got a partner in Microsoft and a Teams collaborative tool that you're integrating through. But if I step back and think long term, that's something that I hear about every platform's ecosystem all the time from users and other partners. And I hear really good things about SAP. And I won't say anything about anyone else, but I don't hear really good things about many other platforms. So I would imagine that as you're thinking about, you know, where this is going, that you're also thinking about so all your partners are introducing some of this, and you have you have a data set and workflow that triggers them and that they can benefit from, and vice versa. So there's a lot to unpack there, and that's part of that. Part of it is the advantage for the user, and part of it is the security and trust that you bring your customers. So I imagine that's so complex, thinking about the ecosystem, but so exciting at the same time.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's complicated, like you said, George. So, you know, and we have a number of different partners that we're working with, you know, Microsoft, Google, and then some of the newer ones as well, Anthropic and Cohere and so on. And each of them has a different purpose, different capabilities. And so we're looking at using those all under the covers. So, you know, it's SaaS, so our customers don't necessarily need to know what we're using for any particular use case. But for these initial kind of what I would call writing assistant use cases, we are using OpenAI from Microsoft to behind the scenes to do that. But there's lots of other use cases that we are, you know, getting started on and will be coming out with in 2024, and we may be using other technologies behind the scenes. But all of those have been vetted and are being looked at by SAP broadly, not just SuccessFactors.
Right. That makes sense. And when you, you know, getting thinking about SuccessFactors, and that's the world that I'm living in, or the part in this market. Um, you've told us about some recruiting use cases and what's going live. Are there, I guess, a couple of questions, you can take it however you'd like. Are there particular things that you're excited about the impact, beyond those use cases, or are there things that are coming that you can point to, that I know you can't point to everything, but that may be interesting to you or exciting to you, that are maybe, coming out after those recruiting launches?
Yeah. So in addition to, so we showed two things at Sapphire a few months ago. And so in addition to those that are being launched upcoming, we've added a couple more, which is around performance and goals. So again, assisted writing of goals, assisted writing of performance feedback, and so on. So those are also coming very quickly. And then we have a whole long list of other things, which include, getting support help, all the way from that angle to, more assisted screening within recruiting, and then and everything in between.
Okay, that's exciting. And one of the last conversation you and I had like this, where we did a podcast type thing, was we were talking about culture and experience, largely experience. And I'm curious, you were so passionate about, putting, and I know it reflects SAP's passion as well, but you in particular were very passionate about the experience of everyone, every employee, period. And how is this new onslaught of AI innovation impacting that? In what ways, or how do you feel about it?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think what we've learned is that generative AI is really helpful in terms of helping people get over writer's block, in terms of helping people refine and their already existing thoughts, etc. Right? So it's not a replacement of people or what they're capable of, right? But it's really about augmenting and accelerating what they're trying to accomplish. So I think from that perspective, we can massively improve the experience. Now, on the flip side is all of the risk and fear, and like, truthfully, I mean, it's not just FUD, it concerns over, is what generative AI coming out with, is it appropriate? Is it true? Is it factual? Is it right? Like, all of these things. And so the experience of making sure that people feel comfortable with the content is important. So first, with the writing assistant, we need to make sure it's appropriate, right? So what we're putting out into the world from a job posting perspective, is it biased? Is it going to attract the right people, et cetera? From a performance feedback perspective, are we putting bias into that, or putting inappropriate things into that feedback, et cetera? So those elements are really important for that part. And so that's something that we all need to work on. And generative AI in itself isn't going to solve that. So we need other tools, other mechanisms to make sure of that, right? The other side is starting to use generative AI for things where we need it to be accurate, right? So instead of augmenting stuff we already know, if we wanted to use generative AI for something like an implementation guide, or like, here's how you do X, right? That's getting into a territory where is it true and is it complete is really important. And so just leaving that out, leaving that to the generative AI Borg is not going to work, right? So that's where we need to start bringing the data close and having a more monitored kind of service.
Yeah, yeah. This whole conversation to me, it really underscores the need to, and this is counter to what a lot of my peers say. It's, start with the platform and build out from there. I mean, you're just the way you introduced your role, the level of effort that goes into deciding if you should build it, how you should build it, why you're building it, who it's for, how you research it, what you take into account. And that's kind of, those have been the themes through this whole conversation, is the privacy, security, experience. And I think that in and of itself, I was just in Nashville and I was, urging the audience, it was HR and talent leaders. So everybody wants to talk about AI, and I was urging them to start with your platform and, understand what's coming and what they're doing. And, there are always going to be some apps at play, but you have a real opportunity to minimize that now. And just from a security and privacy perspective. So I really appreciate everything you've said. Is there anything, stepping back or, up a little bit high, sort of 30,000 feet, thinking about those HR leaders and talent leaders, and even the work tech industry at large, any, insights that you would share about this? I think some of what you just said is key, but anything else you would have them to keep in mind as they're thinking about this?
Yeah, there's a couple things, George. So one thing is, just like we've been talking about throughout the last few minutes, is like this big pendulum between like all the possibility and all of the risk, right? And so I think it's important that that HR leaders are not on either full end of the pendulum, right? So first of all, I think it's really important to have a mindset of curiosity of what is possible and what could we do and what could work, with a healthy level of skepticism and risk, right? So being able to kind of poke holes in things, but I would start with curiosity and possibility before going to the end of no, we can't do any of that because it's too scary. The other thing that I would say, and this is probably goes without saying, but you never know. It's so important for HR leaders and their teams to try out stuff like ChatGPT, just kind of separately, and see what it can do and what it can't do, what it's good at, just really experiment. And it's free, it's easy. I went into a service that was doing like visualizations, and I tried to come up with like a candidate visualization on some platform, and it was just horrendous, right? So you get a sense of like, where are the boundaries? What are the possibilities? So I think it's really important that everyone just experiments and learns what they can.
Yeah, those are great points. And my sense is that I would say everybody's aware of it, but I think people do need to hear that. I think there's still some fear or, that unknown. And I would probably say less or more than half have only, taken a quick look at it and haven't really dove in. And it is illuminating when I'm using it a lot, and it really highlights where the strengths are and where the weaknesses are, to your point. So how can folks best learn more about, anything SAP or any of what we talked about?
Yeah, well, we do have our Success Connect conference coming up really soon. So it's the week of October 2nd in Las Vegas at the Venetian. We also have an online component. And so there will be a bunch of information coming out before that, blogs and press releases and all that kind of stuff, to learn more about what we're talking about. And of course, we're launching all sorts of things and announcing all sorts of things, and AI is a big part of it, but also WorkTech. So, you know, how we're bringing SuccessFactors to Microsoft Teams, how we're leveraging conversational AI to enable people to get their work done without, you know, going into traditional navigational methods, et cetera. So lots of news coming out.
Great. Well, I'll link to that in the notes. And I really appreciate your time, Amy. This was great. I learned a lot, and thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate it, George. It was really fun.
Yeah. And for everyone, if you're watching or listening, thank you for your time, and until next time.
Great. See you soon.